evening, and welcome to the North Metro Mayors Association Legislative Candidate Forum. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jill Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the North Metro Mayors Association. The North Metro Mayors Association was created back in 1987 as a nonpartisan organization advocating for issues and opportunities of importance to the North Suburban region. I would like to thank the association for coordinating and sponsoring the forum, as well as the candidates participating in tonight's forum for making this event possible. Thank you to Coon Rapids for hosting the event in the City Council chambers, and to CTN for recording and airing this forum. Our goal in sponsoring tonight's Legislative Candidate Forum is to provide residents with an opportunity to learn about the candidates' ideas and positions on issues that we believe are important to the future of our communities here in the North Metro area. We will pose 4 prepared questions. Responses will be in a rotating order with set time limits on their answers. I note that these are limits that are maximums, not minimums. We regret that we cannot cover all issues of interest tonight due to time constraints. I'm pleased to introduce the candidates with us tonight for House District 35B, Jerry Newton and Polly Madison. Thank you both for participating in this forum. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes for an introductory statement, and then we'll get started with the prepared questions. So, Jerry, you're first.
Good. Thank you, Jim. I'm Senator Jerry Newton, and I'm running for the Minnesota House of Representatives in District 35B. This is an area that I've represented as an elected official for 26 years on the Coon Rapids City Council, the Anoka-Hennepin School Board, the Minnesota House of Representatives, and the Minnesota Senate. I ran successful businesses in this area for 22 years and teach political science at Anoka-Ramsey Community College. I was president of the Sunrise Montessori School and a founding member of Free to Be, providing over 1,000 cars to needy families in our area. I was appointed by Governor Dayton to co-chair the Coon Rapids Dam Commission, which resulted in over $16 million in repairs to the dam, while creating an Asian carp barrier that prevented those invasive species from entering the watersheds of northern Minnesota. I've served on 12 different committees in the Minnesota House and Senate and chaired the Minnesota School Trust Lands Commission. Currently, I'm a member of the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission. Additionally, I've served on Met Council Transportation Advisory Board and the League of Minnesota Cities Transportation Committee. Nationally, I was a member of the Congressional Prescription Drug Task Force and the National Leagues of Cities Energy and Environmental Committee. I'm a product of the North Metro, having been born in Maple Grove, attended school in Osseo, served 23 years in the Army, live in Coon Rapids, and had businesses in both Blaine and Coon Rapids. I've represented Coon Rapids, Blaine, and Spring Lake Park in the state legislature. Again, I'm Jerry Newton, and I'm running for office in District 35B. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to Polly.
Hello. Thank you to the North Metro Mayors Association for hosting this forum tonight, and thank you for inviting me to participate. My name is Polly Madison, and I live in Coon Rapids. I am running for the Minnesota House of Representatives to be the new voice for our district, our new district. I am a special education support professional with almost 20 years of experience working in our public schools. I have decided to run for office after seeing firsthand the learning loss that occurred in having our schools closed down during the pandemic. My experience working in the public schools is that we are investing our future in our kids is the most important job we have. I love working with and appreciate working with our students into being a positive influence in their lives each day while they learn new skills and grow as students. It's also important for them to be in the classroom. And I believe kids need to be in the classroom environment more than anything else. I have lived in Minnesota all my life, and I have never seen this level of violent crime. Every Minnesotan deserves to feel safe in their homes and neighborhoods, and so I am running to make sure the representative for our area supports the men and women who enforce our laws and are there to protect us. I am proud to be the only candidate running in my district who is endorsed by the Minnesota Police and Peace Officer Association. I would love to earn your support and serve our community, and I am excited to be here.
Thank you. At this time, we will go to our prepared questions. This will be done in a rotating order with the rebuttal opportunity. There's a 2-minute limit for each answer, and after each candidate has answered, there will be a rebuttal opportunity with a 45-second time limit. So Jerry Newton, you're going to answer the question first, and the question is, what are the top 1 or 2 issues you hear while campaigning, and if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2023 legislature works in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
Good, thank you, Jill. Yeah, I think the number 1 issue I hear has to do with the elimination of state taxes on Social Security. And this is due in part to the fact that I do a lot of door knocking during the day and find a lot of seniors at home. And a lot of them were disappointed that the bills that would eliminate the state taxes on Social Security were left on the table. The other thing that comes up has really very little to do with the legislature, but it's been my work on the Coon Rapids Dam. And people are really interested in seeing the Coon Rapids Dam again become a source of hydroelectric power for our area. In terms of working with the legislature and the governor, I've got a solid record of collaborating with both parties, with the governor's office, and making sure things get done in the legislature.
Great, thank you. Now, Polly Madison, I'll repeat the questions for you. What are the top 1 or 2 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2023 legislature works in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
Thank you. I found that the top issues I hear when I'm out door knocking as well, and in other various capacities within our community, is inflation and public safety. With inflation at the highest levels we've seen in more than 40 years, families in our community are having to make tough choices just to make sure they can afford to put food on their table and gas in their cars. I especially feel bad for the single parents who, their income isn't changing. However, inflation keeps going up. They have to make really hard choices. And so I feel compassion for that reason. If elected, I will vote to take the state's $9 billion budget surplus and return it back to the Minnesotans through significant and permanent tax relief. This will help mitigate the impacts that inflation is having. The other issue I hear about is public safety. We just heard on the news down at Northtown at a grocery store, there was a carjacking. Every Minnesotan deserves to have the ability to feel safe and secure in their neighborhood. Unfortunately, we have seen a massive uptick in violent crime across the Twin Cities in the last 2 years. I heard that there was 16 carjackings a day on average in the Twin Cities. As your next representative, I will work with brave men and women of law enforcement to make sure they have the resources needed to keep us safe, hold criminals accountable, and fight rising crime. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with Jerry Newton.
I really have no rebuttal. What Polly hears at the door is what she hears at the door.
Okay. And Polly, would you like to provide a 45-second rebuttal?
Well, I really hear a lot about people being worried about crime. I had one gentleman who just came back from going down to the Coon Rapids Police Station because he works in Coon Rapids, and somebody came along and took his catalytic converter off of his vehicle, and he's out $800. And he knows that nobody will do anything. I mean, he said he can't get anyone to do anything about it. So I'm concerned about it.
On to question 2, and we're going to begin with Polly Madison. Describe your view of local and regional transportation infrastructure needs. Do you believe additional state funding for transportation is necessary? And if so, what sources of increased revenue would you consider supporting?
Thank you. When it comes to transportation funding in Minnesota, the question isn't a lack of revenue, it's a question of spending priorities. As things currently stand, Minnesota has more than enough funding and revenue to fix our crumbling roads and bridges. Unlike Governor Walz and the Democrats, I do not support a gas tax increase. Instead, we should repurpose already existing sales taxes on car repairs, car sales, and more to fund our transportation needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can repeat the question for Jerry Newton. Describe your view of local and regional transportation infrastructure needs. Do you believe additional state funding for transportation is necessary? If so, what sources of increased revenue would you consider supporting?
Yes, I do believe that increased funding is necessary, and what I would do is take a third of the $9 billion surplus, $3 billion, and invest it in roads and bridges. We have a lot of projects in this area that are waiting funding, specifically bills that I've had on Highway 65 to eliminate the bridges at 99th, 109th, and 117th. And then in Coon Rapids area to expand Highway 10 from Hanson Boulevard to Round Lake Boulevard with a third lane. So that funding is necessary, and we do have, money that we can use in addition to the transportation funding that was provided in the bills that are laying on the table and the bonding funding that was provided in the last legislative session. If we can get back into session, if the Republicans in the Senate would agree to us returning to session, we could pass those bills and get that funding moving. Thank you.
Thank you. And now an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with Polly Madison.
My main position is that we have one of the highest tax states in this country, and I think that we need to begin. Of course, I support the roads. I support what John Heinrich has done with Highway 10, and Representative Nolan West, what he's done with Highway 65. So I support all that, but I do not like having $9 billion of our money sitting and waiting for us to get our money back. So, thank you.
And Jerry Newton, would you like to provide a 45-second rebuttal?
Yeah, I'd like to mention a couple things. First of all, Nolan West has done absolutely nothing on Highway 65. He's one of the worst legislators I've ever seen. He doesn't even bother to sign on the bills that I've had for Highway 65. And also, with Highway 10 funding, this is something we've worked on for years, and we really have to get this going in order to make sure that we have a ready flow of traffic once the projects in Ramsey and Anoka are finished.
Thank you. On to question 3, and we'll begin with Jerry Newton. This community is part of not just a regional or national marketplace, but a global one that competes for businesses and talent. What policies would you support to help retain and attract businesses and talent to the region?
Well, first of all, safe communities and infrastructure are key to any community's growth. We need the infrastructure, we need the roads, we need the bridges in order to get the transportation that's required for commercial and industrial development in our area. Excuse me. We do have safe communities. What happens in Minneapolis and St. Paul and Chicago and New Orleans isn't what happens in Coon Rapids and Andover. Our communities are safe, but we need the infrastructure, the roads and bridges that'll permit these businesses to come in here and the existing businesses to expand.
Thank you. And I'll repeat the question for Polly. The community is part of not just a regional or national marketplace, but a global one that competes for business and talent. What policies would you support to help retain and attract businesses and talent to the region?
Thank you. I would work to make sure our community and state has a business-friendly environment. We need more job opportunities and lower prices for our consumers. We can achieve this by streamlining and making government more efficient so that our small businesses can grow. Additionally, our tax policy is out of step with our neighboring states, making Minnesota less competitive. Plus, we are losing our families to lower tax states, and that's pretty sad for a lot of people. Also, thriving Main Street and small businesses offer huge benefits for our community, and they employ our friends, family, and neighbors, and they provide the goods and services that we depend on. As policymakers, we need to do what we can to make sure these businesses achieve their full potential.
Thank you. And now an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with Jerry Newton.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I think, there are issues that we have to deal with, but primarily what we need to be concerned with is ensuring that this part of the metropolitan area finally gets the infrastructure developed that it needs. We've been waiting much too long. And there are a lot of businesses that would like to settle here, a lot of industries that would like to move in here. But because of our roads and bridges, they're not doing it.
And Polly Madison, would you like to provide a 45-second rebuttal?
I would just like to say that I think that part of the reason small businesses are not coming to this area is because of the high tax burden on the small small businesses. Thank you.
We're going to do question 4, and Polly will answer first. What should be the role of the Metropolitan Council in guiding policy development in the North Metro?
Policy development in our communities should be guided by public officials that are accountable to the people they serve. My issue with Metropolitan Council is that they are an unelected board that lacks accountability from the communities that their policies impact. Decisions should be kept on a local level so that decision makers are responsible to their constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Jerry, I'll repeat the question for you.
Thank you.
What should be the role of the Metropolitan Council in guiding policy development in the North Metro?
Well, the Met Council does develop the policies and the guidance for many things in our area. The Transportation Advisory Board helps with transportation, the water and wastewater control helps, the park system helps. But one of the things with the Met Council is I got in an argument with Governor Dayton about this, but we need to have a Met Council that has staggered terms. As it is now, a new governor comes in, he appoints all new council members. They're completely unfamiliar with most of the things that the council does. So it's a staff-driven council, and it operates that way for about the first 2 years. By having staggered terms, we'd be much more effective. And contrary to what Polly is saying, an elected Met Council is not a very good idea. When you look at the size of the area, we go from St. Francis to the river in Coon Rapids, and from Oak Grove all the way to East Bethel, east and west. That's much too big an area for any one representative to run in, especially when their salary is less than $2,000 a year. No one is going to be stepping forward to run in an area like that and get their name out so that people know that they're actively pursuing membership on the council.
Thank you. And now an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with Polly Madison.
Thank you. My main comment about that would be that we have local planning commissions that are locally actively involved and familiar with their community, and it would be nice if the Met Council were at least accountable to those people, because they're the ones that are actually involved in the community. And then I guess that's about it.
Jerry Newton, would you like to provide a 45-second rebuttal?
Yes, I would just like to say that organizations like North Metro Mayors and a lot of the other organizations of mayors around the metropolitan area, they know who the people are who could serve on the council and who have the experience to deal with all of the varied issues that the council deals with. So I would suggest that the organizations themselves are able to put forward the names of people that should serve on the council and have the governor select from those names. Thank you.
This is the end of our prepared questions, and we will now go to closing statements for our candidates. We are requesting 60 seconds max per candidate. And first up is Jerry Newton.
Thank you. I've served this community for 26 years in elective office. I know the community, I know the people. I have contacts in the legislature. I can get things done. I've been a trusted official for all this time, and I would like to serve an additional 2 years as your state representative in District 35B. Thank you, and thank North Metro Mayors for hosting this, and Jill for you filling in at the last minute here.
And Polly?
Thank you, Jill. I'd like to thank also the North Metro Mayors Association for putting this on and giving me the opportunity to let people know where I stand on different issues. I would like to emphasize, we used to have a small business. My dad was a small business owner, and I'm very strong pro small business. I think that's the backbone of our communities and our state. I really feel that our businesses and our families need to have a strong infrastructure, and I am very excited to be able to run for office, and I think I'll win. Thank you.
So thank you. This brings us to the close of this forum for the candidates from 35A. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more candidates. And we would like to thank our current candidates for being here this evening. Thank you. And thank you to the Mayor's Association for sponsoring these forums. I want to thank the City of Coon Rapids and CTN staff for making tonight's event possible. And please remember to vote, either right away or at least by Election Day on Tuesday, November 8th. Thank you.
Want to know the who, what, when, and where of Coon Rapids? Then follow CTN on social media. It's that simple. Whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, keep up with local news, sports, and events. And the people who make our community such a great place to live. So give us a follow, like, share, or subscribe, and always be the first to know what's up in Coon Rapids. That's CTN, helping you stay connected.
Good evening, and welcome to the North Metro Mayors Association Legislative Candidate Forum. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Jill Brown, and I'm the association's executive director. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to tell you a little bit about the North Metro Mayors Association. It was formed in 1987 as a nonpartisan organization advocating for issues and opportunities of importance to the North Suburban region. I would like to thank the North Metro Mayors for coordinating this and sponsoring the forum, as well as the candidates participating tonight. Thank you to Coon Rapids for hosting the event in the City Council chambers, and thank you to CTN for recording and airing the forum. Our goal in sponsoring tonight's Legislative Candidate Forum is to provide residents with an opportunity to learn about the candidates' ideas and positions on issues of what we believe are important to the future of our communities and the North Metro region. We will pose 4 prepared questions. Responses will be in rotating order with a set time limit on the answers. I note that these limits are maximums, and we regret that we cannot cover all issues of interest tonight due to time constraints. I'm pleased to introduce the candidates with us tonight for House District 35A, John Heinrich and Zach Stevenson. Thank you both for participating in the forum. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes for an introductory statement, and then we'll get started with the prepared questions. Up first is John Heinrich.
Well, thank you, North Metro Mayors, and thank you for moderating tonight. And to the audience out here and to the audience tuning in, thanks for being here. So I grew up in Coon Rapids, and now my wife and I are raising our children in Anoka, not too far from the fairgrounds. This is a community that I love and that I care about. I graduated in 1998 from Meadow Creek Christian School in Andover and joined the Marine Corps in 1999. Served in the Marines for 8 years, 99 through 2007. I was in Iraq in 2003 and 4. Came back, started doing asphalt and concrete work for a living. That's what I do nowadays. But Zach and I actually came in together in 2018 into the legislature. So I've served 4 years now as your state representative if you're living in Anoka. And if you're in Coon Rapids, we're going to be new to each other as far as legislatively. But again, I grew up in Coon Rapids. I'd really like to continue serving for a 3rd term because it was an honor and a pleasure to serve on our State Veterans Committee. That's one big reason why I'd like to earn a 3rd term from the voters. When I was young, my grandpa he fought in World War II, and he showed me his uniforms, and he used to talk to me about how important it is for service to serve other people, and that things will come and go, but people last forever. And so I've really taken that to heart. I grew up as a pastor's kid. My dad was a pastor, and my mom was a teacher. And so it's just been a real honor to serve in our state legislature. My name is John Heinrich, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Zach Stevenson.
Well, thank you, North Metro Mayors and Jill, for having this event and hosting tonight, and just for doing the great work that North Metro Mayors does in this community. In my time in the legislature, I've had the opportunity to work with North Metro Mayors and get a lot done. It's a tremendous asset to the community of the North Metro to have this organization. I'm also a lifelong resident of this area. I grew up right here in Coon Rapids. I live a mile down the road from the house I grew up in. I didn't get very far in life. After I went off to college, my first job was working for Senator Amy Klobuchar. I learned a lot working for Senator Klobuchar about how to bring people together and to work hard to find those common sense solutions. But after a short time working with Amy, I decided to get out of the political world, and I went to law school, and I got a job working at a private law firm where I did a lot of work on pro bono basis, representing victims of domestic violence and also kids in Anoka Hennepin schools who were bullied and harassed by their classmates. And for that work, I was named Attorney of the Year in 2007. But ultimately, I wanted to do more public service, so I left that law firm and took a job in the Hennepin County Attorney's Office as a prosecutor, where I work now handling felony-level criminal cases. As John said, in 2018, I returned to politics and got elected to the legislature at the same time that he did. We came in together. I've really enjoyed serving in the legislature. I am the chair of the Commerce Committee. I've passed 32 bills into law in these 4 years, so it's been a very productive 4 years for me. My bills have lowered the cost of health care and made Minnesota a national leader in energy efficiency. We've even had time to modernize our state's liquor laws. And so we've had a very productive 4 years, and I'm hoping to continue that work at the legislature.
Thank you. At this time, we will go to our prepared questions. This will be done in a rotating order with a rebuttal opportunity. There's a 2-minute time limit for the answer, and each candidate, after they've answered, will have an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal. So John Heinrich, you're up first. What are the top 1 or 2 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2023 legislature works in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
Well, it's been really fun. It's a joy to be out meeting the constituents of Anoka and Coon Rapids. I've got to say that the top 2 issues that I hear most about, people are concerned about the economy. The Biden-Walz economy has made everything cost more in our state, whether you're buying groceries or gas, and Minnesota can do better. Did you know that Minnesota is ranked number 2 in the country for business tax? Number 2. We can do a lot better than that. We're number 6 for individual income tax. And so I think that's a big issue. Minnesotans are talking to me about that when I'm at the doors. And then another one that's a big concern is crime, the rising crime in Minnesota. We've had some real failed leadership at the level of governor, Minneapolis mayor, and others. We've heard harmful rhetoric from elected officials. This needs to stop. We need to support our law enforcement. We need to fully fund law enforcement, and we need to hold criminals accountable. So those are really 2 of the biggest issues that I run into, that people talk to me about. The public safety issue, supporting our police and supporting law enforcement, and our economy. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. And Zach, I'll repeat the question. What are the top 1 or 2 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2023 legislature works in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
Yeah, so I really enjoy talking to people at the doors. They bring up a lot of really great issues. Education comes up almost every time I'm out at the doors. People are frustrated with how big class sizes are. My wife is a teacher at Coon Rapids High School where class sizes are 38, 39 kids. That's just way too big. We need to get class sizes down, support not just teachers, but everyone who works in the school, paralegals, the food professionals, the bus drivers, the custodians, everybody. Another big issue is generally the cost of living, but particularly with regard to healthcare. And bringing down the cost of healthcare and prescription drugs has been a focus of mine at the legislature. Combating the price gouging that's going on, particularly around drugs like insulin and the EpiPen, has been a major focus. As a prosecutor, I care a lot about public safety, and I hear about that a lot at the doors too. In the legislature, I've worked hard to increase funding for the police, including our local law enforcement delivering funds to combat catalytic converter theft and auto theft. And then the last issue that comes up almost every night I'm out at the doors is women's rights. What the Supreme Court did this summer was just abominable, taking away the rights of people for the first time in American history, and after 50 years of settled law. John didn't mention abortion just now. I suspect it's not because he doesn't hear about it at the doors. The last time we had a debate, there was a question about whether we would vote in favor of a constitutional amendment banning abortion. And I clearly said that I would not vote for that amendment. I believe very strongly in women's rights. I'm less clear about what John's position is, so I'm hoping he'll use his rebuttal to answer that question tonight.
So now there is an opportunity for a rebuttal. John?
Well, he's a very talented lawyer, and so that's what you do is you throw it back with ask a question. So, but I'm not going to entertain that question right now, other than to say that I've seen attack ads on my phone and on YouTube and some commercials about me wanting to restrict abortions, and I just want to let my opponent know I'm not coming for all your precious abortions. I just want common sense abortion control.
And Zach Stevenson, would you like to provide a 45-second rebuttal?
I would, because I'm pretty disappointed. It's a pretty straightforward question. A constitutional amendment can be placed on the ballot by a vote of the legislature. It doesn't require the governor. We've seen it happen before. If John is elected your state representative, he would have a vote on whether to put an amendment on the ballot to ban abortion. And he's refusing to answer whether he would vote yes or no. I would vote no.
On to question 2. And Zach, you're going to start this time. Describe your view of local and regional transportation infrastructure needs. Do you believe additional state funding for transportation is necessary? And if so, what sources of increased revenue would you consider supporting?
Well, Minnesota has massive transportation and infrastructure needs. We have hundreds of bridges across the state that are labeled fracture critical, which means that if one component fails, the bridge could collapse. Engineers have consistently given our roads low grades. And frankly, you don't need to hear my statistics and comments. All you have to do is go out there and drive, and you will see that our roads are not in great shape. And part of it's because of the weather we have here, but part of it is because of the lack of investment over several years. I'm a strong supporter of investing in our roads and bridges. I was very pleased when the federal government passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill that I think will make meaningful progress. But I'll tell you one thing I am really concerned about, and have been throughout the entire time I've lived in the North Metro, is the fact that I feel that Coon Rapids and Anoka continually get the short end of the stick when it comes to transportation funding. Highway 10 has more traffic on it during rush hour than 35W. But to this day, there are still stoplights on Highway 10. Can you imagine if there were stoplights on 35W? I worked in a bipartisan fashion to get the money to make Highway 10 into a freeway, and thanks to my efforts, we have still 3 more summers of road construction to get through. But once we get through that, you will be able to drive clear through Anoka and Ramsey without having to stop at a stoplight, and that will be a good day.
Okay, John, I will repeat the question. Describe your view of local and regional transportation infrastructure needs. Do you believe additional state funding for transportation is necessary? And if so, what sources of increased revenue would you consider supporting?
Well, absolutely. My opponent didn't mention the fact that he did vote for an increased gas tax. And so that's not a revenue stream that I think is appropriate right now. We do need to get some sort of revenue stream from electric vehicles. I think that our infrastructure is very important, but unfortunately the House majority in the last 4 years has put all their priorities in the wrong spot. They want to have another high-speed train for billions of dollars going up to Duluth. I think we have a question later tonight about the Met Council. I think they're missing about $500 million in funding for a light rail line. Minnesotans are tired of these money-wasting goals that frankly the House majority, the DFL, has put forward. And so I hope that moving forward we can stay away from California mandates. I think that we need to support our business community, and we need to support our transportation and fund our roads and bridges in Minnesota.
And an opportunity for you?
Yeah, well, I think it's unquestionable that our roads and bridges in the North Metro need help. And unfortunately, John's record is that of saying no consistently to any attempt to fix our transportation and infrastructure up here in the northern suburbs. Last year, in 2020, we had a bonding bill that, among other things, would have done the Anoka rail crossing on Ferry Street over 47. John voted no, despite the fact that 57 of his Republican colleagues voted yes. 60% of the Republicans in the legislature voted yes. John voted no on that. And in 2019, when we had a bipartisan transportation bill, he voted no on that too, despite the fact that 75 Republicans and 80% of Republicans in the legislature voted yes. And that bill funded the first steps at building a crossing across the river between Ramsey and Dayton. At some point, you have to be able to say yes and stand up to the far right of your party in order to get the job done for our local folks.
And John Heinrich, would you like to provide a 45-second rebuttal?
Sure, but my opponent knows that I was an author and co-author on those bills for Highway 10 and that I pushed for the railroad tracks, a bridge over the railroad tracks on Highway 47 by the fairgrounds, ranked one of the most dangerous, or maybe second most dangerous crossing in the state. I came into the legislature and chief authored a bill to get that fixed. Next thing you know, a couple weeks later, I didn't get invited, but Governor Walz stopped into town after I highlighted that bill and ended up putting $100 million towards that railroad pass and one up in Moorhead. I ended up voting no. My opponent's correct on the bonding bill that was bloated with all kinds of different bad ideas. So that's the way it goes in Minnesota politics right now. I'm a believer in single subject bills. That way voters can see how we vote on specific things. My opponent's going to like to pull a lot of things out of bonding bills and say he didn't vote for this or that when there's maybe 50 things or more in one big bill.
On to question number 3, and John, you'll start. This community is part of not just a regional or national marketplace, but a global one that competes for business and talent. What policies would you support to help retain and attract businesses and talent to the region?
Well, we need to. My opponent mentioned he passed 32 bills. I'm wondering how many were relaxing regulation that we have on our businesses here, or getting rid of some of the unnecessary taxes and regulation that we have on our businesses in Minnesota. We can and should be a state that makes it very lucrative for a business to want to come here and hire people. That's one of the reasons why I chief authored some of the bills for Highway 10 to get rid of those stoplights. And my opponent and I worked together on that. Of course, he wouldn't give me any credit when he first talked about it, but we worked together on those bills. We both wanted Highway 10 fixed. I had business owners talking to me about wanting to hire people in that neck of the woods there, and it was real tough because Highway 10 was so restrictive as far as traffic. But we can do better as a state in taxation-wise. Like I mentioned, I think in my opening comments, we are second behind New Jersey out of the whole country for the highest business income tax. Minnesotans deserve better than that. The economy is crushing. The Biden-Walz economy is crushing us. The reaction, one man rule all. Governor Walz taking emergency powers for over a year, shutting down our businesses. You got to be kidding me. No executive should have that power to shut down your small business. Minnesotans deserve better.
And Zach Stevenson, I'll repeat the question. This community is part of not just a regional or national marketplace, but a global one that competes for business and talent. What policies would you support to retain and attract businesses and talent to the region?
Well, I think we have to start by looking about what makes Minnesota a successful place for businesses to grow and thrive, and it's our people, it's our workforce. We have a highly educated, highly skilled workforce that creates companies like Medtronic. Earl Bakken founded Medtronic in his garage on the strength of his public school education and a University of Minnesota degree, and now it's one of the largest companies in the world. You can look across the map and say that it's the people here in Minnesota that make our economy work. And it isn't something that just happens. It's because we invest in people here. It's because we've had a phenomenal school system. But we're resting on our laurels. Class sizes are way too big, our standards are too low, and the results are not what we need them to be. We need to do better in education if we want to continue to compete on the global stage. We're never going to have the lowest taxes in the country, and we shouldn't have the lowest. We should be competitive, and I do think we can cut taxes. But we're never going to be the cheapest. We don't have oil in the ground, and Lord knows our winters aren't what are drawing people to Minnesota. What draws companies here are our people. And to answer John's question, how many of my 32 bills reduced regulation? Several of them, including a bill for a business in the northern suburbs that sells dialysis equipment. We got rid of an unnecessary duplication in state law that forced them to have ridiculous inspections of sealed containers. I'm a common sense guy. I'm not an ideologue. I'm someone who wants to look across the table, strike a deal, and find something that works for everyone. And if that means less regulation, I'm all for it.
Thank you. And now an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with John Heinrich.
Yeah, Minnesotans deserve better in our state. We are the second highest in corporate income tax. Nobody's talking about being the lowest. We don't need to be 49th out of 50. I think Minnesotans understand that.
And Zach Stevenson, would you like to provide a rebuttal?
As I said, I think that the state has a significant budget surplus. I think that tax cuts should be part of how we deal with that. We had a deal at the end of session to do just that. We were going to take a third of the money and return it to taxpayers in the form of permanent tax cuts, a third of the money to stay in the state's reserves in case there's an economic downturn, and a third of the money invested in roads, bridges, public safety, education, healthcare. I thought that was a really responsible compromise, and I was proud to support it. I was disappointed that it was blocked and didn't happen. I would like us to have a special session tomorrow so that we can get that work done and get the money back to the people where it belongs.
Okay, final question. And Zach, you'll start. What should be the role of the Metropolitan Council in guiding policy development in the North Metro?
I think the Met Council has an important role to play in this respect because, there are a number of municipalities across the Twin Cities, and we don't want each and every one of them doing their own thing and going off in contradictory and counterproductive directions. And so I think over the course of the decades it's been around, the Met Council has been a good way for us to stick together as a group and plan as a group. That said, I think it's in need of some reforms after several decades and really being one of the first of its kind institutions in the country. I think we've learned a lot. I would support adding local government officials to the Met Council, mayors and city council, county commissioners from across the region, perhaps getting rid of a number or most of the appointed members and replacing them with those local officials in a way that's proportionate to people around the area, because I do think that local accountability to people is important and is missed in the current system. So I think we should reform the Met Council. And
John Heinrich, to you, what should be the role of the Metropolitan Council in guiding policy development in the North Metro?
Well, a lot of Minnesotans know this, but the Metropolitan Council was developed in the 60s to help connect wastewater treatment and sewers, and so that there was some congruency between the different municipalities. And since then, the Met Council has just gone way over and above and out of bounds, in my view. We're talking about a group of people that are unelected that have taxing authority. Where's your representation, Minnesota? You need to have representatives voting on how you get taxed, not the Met Council. In short, I appreciate the question. I say we abolish the Met Council.
And now an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with Zach.
Well, I certainly wouldn't abolish it. As John mentioned, it was created to coordinate between agencies around things like sewer and water, and I think that role is still important. As I said, I think that there is a missing accountability aspect. I think you can fix that without getting rid of something that actually has done a lot of good for our region, has been a model for other areas around the country.
And John, would you like to provide a rebuttal?
Well, I wish that my opponent's same answer as far as not abolishing it and just helping it get better and having some more accountability was the same answer when it came to our police. There was a lot of people calling for defund and dismantle and abolish the police. I never heard an answer like that at that point. So
that's not true, and that's not true. I put out statement after statement saying that I do not support abolishing or defund the police. I can show you the video evidence. That's shameful.
2020, your endorsement by the police was rescinded because of your party's inability to control your members that were threatening to burn down cities in Minnesota.
That has nothing to do. I do not support abolishing the police or defunding the police. I never have. The individual you were talking about, I called for his resignation.
Okay, I believe both sides have made their point on that one, and we are going to move on. So this is the end of our questions for the forum. And we will now go to the closing statements of our candidates. We're asking for 60 seconds of each. And we are going to begin with John Heinrich.
Well, I appreciate your moderating this evening. I appreciate North Metro mayors for this opportunity to, there's obviously a big contrast between my opponent and I this election cycle. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I help run a business. I hire people. I buy equipment. We service our customers. And we have to be out in the marketplace every day so that we can pay our payroll and do a good job for our customers. That's my background. I was in Iraq, fighting in Iraq in 2004 while my opponent was managing a DFL campaign. There's a difference between us. I'm the only candidate in this race that's endorsed by the police. We had a public safety bill at the end of session. My opponent's going to talk about different bills I voted for and didn't vote for. It comes down to this. When I talked to the Coon Rapids Police Chief, when I talked to the Anoka Police Chief and Anoka County Sheriff Stewart, he told me don't vote for that horrible public safety bill. They called it public safety, but it wasn't. I did vote no. I listened to the police. My opponent voted yes for that bill. Thank you for your time. I'm Representative John Heinrich. I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you. And Zach Stevenson.
Well, thank you very much for hosting this debate and for moderating it. And thank you to the audience both here and on the TV for watching tonight. It's been a pleasure to talk with you. I enjoy the work that I'm able to do on behalf of the people of Coon Rapids and Anoka. I strongly support the police in Coon Rapids, Anoka, and across the state of Minnesota, and my voting record shows that. I have consistently voted for more funding for police across the state, and consistently spoken out against efforts to defund the police. I do not support that. What I do support is better schools, better health care, more affordable energy, and a host of other provisions that will make Coon Rapids and Anoka continue to be a great place to live. So thank you very much.
So thank you. This brings us to the close of this forum for the candidates from 35A. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to bring up the Senate candidates for District 35. I would like to thank the candidates and the North Metro Mayors Association, the City of Coon Rapids, and CTN staff for making tonight's event possible. Please remember to vote on or before Tuesday, November 8th. Thank you.
As you know, CTN's on YouTube, and we're on in a big way. We have thousands of videos online to help you stay connected to Coon Rapids on any device, at home, or on the go. And it's because of your faithful viewership that we can celebrate 10,000 subscribers to the CTN YouTube page. Thank you for your support as we continue to keep you connected.
Good evening, and welcome to the North Metro Mayors Association's Candidate Forum. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jill Brown. I'm the moderator this evening, and I'm the executive director of the association. The North Metro Mayors Association was created in 1987 as a nonpartisan organization advocating for issues and opportunities of importance to the north suburban region of the Twin Cities. I would like to thank the North Metro Mayors for coordinating and sponsoring the forum, as well as the candidates participating tonight for making the event possible. Thank you to Coon Rapids for hosting the event in the City Council chambers, and to CTN for recording and airing the forum. Our goal in sponsoring tonight's Legislative Candidate Forum is to provide residents with an opportunity to learn about the candidates' ideas and positions on issues that we believe are important to the future of our communities in the North Metro region. We will pose 4 prepared questions. Responses will be in rotating order with set time limits on their answers. I note that these limits are maximums, not minimums, and we regret that we cannot cover all issues of interest tonight due to time constraints. I'm pleased to introduce the candidates with us tonight for Senate District 35, Jim Abler and Carrie Rerauer. Did I pronounce that correctly? Thank you. Thank you both for participating in this forum. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes for an introductory statement, and then we will get started with the questions. We're going to begin with Jim Abler.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Senator Jim Abler, and I've had the privilege to serve in the Senate 3 terms and 8 terms in the Minnesota House. But that's not what defines me. What defines me is I love people. I'm a 43-year chiropractor, have 6 sons, 6 grandkids, married to my wife, who's a saint for 41 years. And we've been able to serve in the community in many, many ways because this is our community. I don't think my seat belongs to me. I think it belongs to you. And I think that the work I've done in the last, those terms, 23 years, if you can believe it, is reflective of that. Serving families, serving students, serving parents, serving teachers, serving people with disabilities, serving seniors, trying to help infrastructure work, trying to work with both sides of the aisle to collaborate to get something done for the people of this great area. We have just a stellar bunch of people living out this way. I've had the privilege to go to 15,000 doors. And so if you want to pull this out now, you could look over and refresh yourself as to some of the things that I've done. But we also have, this is a mayor's forum, and I want to commend the people who serve in local government, both at the mayor's level and the county level, and how they do their work. And not just the elected officials, but those who work behind the scenes to make it all work. At the end of the day, it has to work. And for all the partisan stuff that we've heard so much about, at the end, we have to work together and get something done. And that's been the hallmark of my work. And that's why I actually want to serve again, so I can continue to keep our area as amazing as it is and give people the voice. I'd like nothing better than go to those 15,000 doors and talk to so many people and then what's on their mind. So stay tuned for a good forum. Thanks for paying attention.
Thank you. And Carrie?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the North Metro Mayors Association for working together in collaboration to ensure we have a vibrant, thriving community. And thank you for holding this forum tonight to help our voters learn about the candidates. I'd like to share a little bit about who I am with you. I grew up in small town Wisconsin, the youngest of 4 daughters of hardworking parents. I started helping with the family business when I was very, very young, and by age 12 I had my own paper out and I was bussing tables at Old Country Buffet at age 16. I went to the University of Minnesota and graduated from there with a bachelor's in biology and a master's in education. I fell in love with Minnesota, and so did my husband, Dan, thankfully. We've lived in Coon Rapids for over 20 years. We bought our first and only home here, and we've raised our 2 daughters here, and we can't imagine a better place to be. One of the moments of my life that led me to running for office occurred while teaching in the fall of 2018. We came back that fall after budget cuts that happened in the spring, and it felt like staffing levels were so low that it was unsafe for the students to me. We had 1 counselor for over 1,000 students, and for the first time in my career, I had a student attempt suicide. When I reached out to our other staff, our support staff at the school, no one knew who this student was, and no one had a reentry plan for them. I felt like our kids were falling through the cracks. Around this time, I had a heart-to-heart with my husband, and I'll never forget what he said. If you want to make a bigger difference, you need to grow your circle of influence. And that's what I'm working on. I wanted to bring a focus on people to our local government. Serving on the city council has showed me we can get things done by working together. I saw what happened the last legislative session and the $9 billion left on the table. As your senator, I will put people first, not politics or the next election.
Thank you. At this time, we will go to our prepared questions. This will be done in a rotating order with a rebuttal opportunity. There's a 2-minute time limit for each answer, and after each candidate has answered, there will be a rebuttal opportunity with a 45-second time limit. So Jim, you begin.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to tell you what the question is first.
What's the question?
Oh, you're going to like this one. What are the top 1 or 2 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2023 legislature works in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
Well, thank you. Thanks for the question. It has been an interesting time at the doors. In my first election, I went to 10,000 thinking that was a lot, and now I'm at 15,000, and I'm just enjoying talking to the people. But I can tell you, people are tense. They're nervous. Many are afraid to open the door. 30% of the people that are in their houses do not come to the door when I come. Maybe that's something about me, but I think it's more about how we've gotten not used to seeing people during COVID. People have retreated, and they're frankly scared. They're scared about the top 2 things. Top 2 is the crime, people feeling safe, and inflation, particularly in food. I just went shopping yesterday, paid $5.18 for Miracle Whip. Like, I bought it because I really like Miracle Whip, but it used to be, $2.50. But they're worried about those things. And what can the state do about some of those? Well, there is something we can do a lot. There's been great discussion about supporting the police and all that, and I'm actually endorsed by the police, the MPPOA, the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, and always been a strong champion of public safety. My son happens to be a deputy sheriff. But for one thing, to decide that our communities are going to be safe, there's all kinds of ways to discuss that. The way to resolve it is actually to keep discussing it. Unfortunately for me, the dialogue happened in a committee over across the street, and I was busy working on the human services one, trying to solve nursing home and group home troubles that are about to collapse. And I was very worried. That was a big, big problem. But so we have to keep talking. We can't just recuse ourselves and then don't get to go to the meetings. People care too much, and that's the dialogue has to continue in an open, free-flowing way. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Carrie, I'll repeat the question for you. What are the top 1 or 2 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2023 legislature works in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
So top 1 or 2 is really tough to do. I would say that there are 5 that come up very often on the doors: public safety, women's reproductive health care, inflation, gun violence prevention, and climate action. I'll speak to 2 of these for the sake of time: public safety and inflation. So Senator Abler said we need to keep discussing public safety. I feel we need to take action. As a city council member, I am on the record of supporting increased funding for our police department. We've added 2 police officers and a full-time social worker, and supported funding for essential equipment, including body cameras. In Coon Rapids, we work in partnership with our police department, and our department has an excellent history of building relationships in the community and keeping crime down. I feel that whether you're in the classroom or at the grocery store, you do deserve to feel safe in your community. Therefore, I support gun violence prevention. The current Senate majority, of which my opponent is a member, hasn't allowed these bills to come to the floor. He has also over a 90% rating from the NRA. As your senator, I will make sure we put people first, and I believe that people have right to feel safe in their neighborhood and feel safe in their community. The second one was people are hurting from inflation. The increased cost of gas and groceries is a struggle. We absolutely can and should be helping our workers, our families, and our seniors. We have over a $9 billion surplus that could have been used to help people. Senator Abler had said he enjoyed serving families, but the current Senate majority, of which my opponent is a member, will not come back for a special session. They put politics over people. I believe it's time for change. I support eliminating specifically the state tax on Social Security, prohibiting price gouging, bringing down prescription drug costs, tax breaks for workers, families, and seniors, because people deserve a senator that will work for them.
Thank you. And now an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with Jim.
Well, sure. The inflation thing, something really bad has happened with the $1.9 trillion and the way Minnesota got $74 billion through all the federal money in every little pocket. Suddenly $100 million is worth nothing. That's one of the effects of inflation on government. And so as we keep pumping money into the economy, borrowed money, we're $30 trillion in debt. It's just unsustainable and dangerous. But just the mindset of elected officials saying, oh, it's just $100 million. And then the thing is, just taking action on crime or anything. The only way anything gets done is you think of an idea, you try to get people to pass it in your own body, get the other body to do it, and the governor has to sign it. So there's what you wish you could do, and there's how hard it is to do something. And so that's what I meant about all our working together. It absolutely has to be that process.
And Carrie, would you like to provide a rebuttal?
Well, the only thing I want to mention is that when talking about the inflation, the large debt that we're talking about is at the federal level, whereas at the state level here, we have a budget surplus, and it can and should be put to work helping people of this community and people of Minnesota.
Okay, thank you. Question 2, and we'll begin with you. Describe your view of local and regional transportation infrastructure needs. Do you believe additional state funding for transportation is necessary? And if so, what sources of increased revenue would you consider supporting?
So I believe one of the primary roles of a senator is to research the community's infrastructure and the other large funding needs, listen to its residents and its leaders, and garner support for these projects at the Capitol from multiple funding avenues, including the Transportation Committee, the large bonding bills, the Corridors of Commerce, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and the federal government. My vision for the region is to continue and build on what we have accomplished, what all of you as mayors have accomplished. I support funding, continued funding for separating railroad traffic from vehicle traffic across the region. This speeds up emergency response times and improves public safety. We need to secure funding for continued improvements to Highways 10 and 65, build on the accomplishments you've already made, and keep going. Highway 10 is a major commuting route into and out of the metro and one of the few key ways to get to northern Minnesota. Highway 65 is just dangerous. The serious and fatal accident rate is 8 times the state average, and congestion is expected to double by 2045. In addition, we need funding for a full interchange at East River Road and Highway 610 in Coon Rapids. It's like this strange half access right now, and this is one of our major corridors into the city. And then bringing it down to the personal level, I talked with folks at Night to Unite, and I heard directly from seniors that have trouble getting to their medical appointments, and I heard from a single mother who struggled getting to work due to a lack of accessible and affordable transportation. Yet it's been 14 years since this legislator provided dedicated funding for public transit. As your senator, I would work with the Met Council and the Transit Authority to get more bus transit routes and increase metro mobility access across our region. I believe that by investing in transit, we can improve the lives of people in our community, build a resilient economy, and mitigate climate change.
So I'll repeat the question for you, Jim. Describe your view of local and regional transportation infrastructure needs. Do you believe additional state funding for transportation is necessary? If so, what sources of increased revenue would you consider supporting?
Well, thanks. And I've been working on this every day. I've been there for my whole time, and actually have quite a portfolio to show for it, all by myself. Oh, wait, no. It was done in a cooperative effort with the regional members. I see Senator Jerry Newton in the audience. He helped. Senator John Hoffman helped. Representative Mark Uglum helped. Both sides of the aisle working together. That's how you get roads done. And that's why we got Highway 10 fully funded. That's why the railroad tracks over the trains on 47 is funded. And that's the way we're going to get Highway 65. We were working together on that just the last session, trying to get money for some of those Highway 65 interchanges because it's so important. But the money doesn't grow on trees, and it just doesn't show up for free. The money that we could do to get started would be to devote the sales tax on car parts. And that's worth about $314 million a year, which is $3 billion over 10 years. Not pocket change. That money is sitting there waiting. Should be dedicated to this purpose. There's been talk about a 20-cent gas tax. Anybody want one of those? I helped get money 14 years ago through a small gas tax. That made sense at the time because the bridge had collapsed. But no family can bear that cost now. And so whatever you're going to want to try to do, you got to find a way to pay for it. And then when the money does come, then the cooperative effort that can be done by the agencies out this area. When we did Highway 10 on the west side, Anoka County, Anoka City, the city of Ramsey, probably Coon Rapids had a piece in it. They all sat down and they refined the project, and the project cost went down and it got better. So the money's not, and there's not that tons of money around, but if we all do what we can do best and let the locals cooperate with the state, we can make the money go further, and those things we want to have happen can absolutely happen.
And now an opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with Carrie.
Yeah, I think it's excellent that there's collaboration, and I agree that that should continue. We need to work in strong collaboration here in the North Metro. I feel we especially have not had the investment in infrastructure that has already taken place in the South Metro. We need to continue to work as a strong collective voice to make sure that that funding comes to the North Metro that has been overdue. There is money there. Again, there is a surplus, and we need to ensure a portion of that is coming to our North Metro. I do not support a gas tax increase. Again, the money is there. Thank you.
And Jim, would you like to provide a rebuttal?
Well, just more comments. And by the way, I do support a special session, particularly for a bonding bill made up of a lot of cash to get some of these projects underway. Inflation is eating our lunch on some of these projects. If we don't get them going now, we're going to be in trouble. And I called Senate Fiscal today, and I said, how much is that surplus? And it turns out it's about $6 billion. It's $12 billion over the 4 years, but if you spend 6, then it goes away. So there's about 5.7 structural, means you can spend that much ongoing. So the surplus is smaller, and we better be prudent about how we spend that, because I think the economy is going to be softening, and some of that big money that's sitting there will be not available. So be prudent.
Question 3, and we'll start with Jim. This community is part of not just a regional or national marketplace, but a global one that competes for businesses and talent. What policies would you support to help retain and attract businesses and talent to the region?
It's a big problem. Workforce is just ruining everything. I'm the chairman of the committee that runs nursing homes and group homes. They can't find people to work there. We've been trying to get extra money. That's part of the discussion we had during session. And Senator Hoffman and I were paving the way to try to find enough money to keep those places open, but because wages went suddenly up $5 overnight. The answer is that it can't be solved just by government, but by a public-private partnership. We are blessed here to have Anoka Tech, Anoka Community College, where they can get some workforce development. Training is amazing. If you remember, they tried to close the tech, and back some 20 years ago, we got to keep that thing open with my help leading a small group of about 500 locals. But it's about workforce, it's about training, and it's about drawing people back into the workforce that are on the sidelines. How do you get them back in? Hard question, but we got to answer it and get them back in. I tried to do some work in my committee on the healthcare side to draw people in, and that's going to require more. To help tell businesses want to come here, you got to make permitting not ridiculously challenging. What do you really need? Not, make the environment safe, and I'm green about that, for heaven's sakes, but don't make it ridiculous. Don't make the inspections pointless. Taxes are high. We've had companies that wanted to stay here that said it's just not worth it. They went to Texas or Florida or somewhere else. And so that really, money does move. And so maybe we need some new incentives. The fiscal disparities that my predecessor set up way back in the day has kept Anoka alive from Anoka County alive from the competition where they would do a bidding war. Maybe it's time for a second, not get rid of it, keep fiscal disparities, but find another way to help the locals, all the regions share in the success of all of us to make the metro in Minnesota a magnet worldwide.
Okay, thank you. And Carrie, I'll repeat the question. This community is part of not just a regional or national marketplace, but a global one, and we compete for business and talent. What policies would you support to help retain and attract businesses and talent to the region?
So we have a flourishing marketplace and business community in this region. As a Coon Rapids City Council member, I have been happy to welcome a large number of new businesses just in the last 2 years into Coon Rapids, as well as expansion of multiple current businesses and our retail centers. Minnesota has the lowest unemployment rate in the nation. As you know, these great things don't happen by accident. It requires forward thinking and future planning as well as good state policy. That planning must include continually maintaining and updating our infrastructure. As your senator, I will work to ensure local government aid and similar programs remain intact so that cities are not hurting for the funds to maintain our infrastructure. Good infrastructure, like the transportation improvements we just talked about in the last question, are what will attract businesses and improve commerce in the region. I have talked to a lot of residents during this campaign, and what I have heard brought them here are our beautiful parks and trails and our neighborhoods. And what they are looking for is great schools for their kids. We must continue to invest in our local community and technical colleges, which attract students from surrounding communities and brings them the 21st century skills for our current and future job markets. And we must strengthen our public schools. When young families are looking to buy their first home, they're looking for the top schools. Senator Abler said in his opening he enjoys serving families. As a longtime public school science teacher, I saw firsthand how state cuts to education are hurting our schools and hurting our kids. We must make Minnesota a leader in the nation in education again to continue to attract talent to this state. As your senator, I will work tirelessly to support our schools, specifically by reducing class sizes and increasing students' access to mental health resources and counselors. Thank you.
And now an opportunity for a rebuttal. Jim?
Yeah, thanks. Well, just, there never has been a cut to education. Even in 2011, with the $6 billion surplus, we cut human services almost $1 billion and still increased education funding. And, there's no one side has a corner on a week here about education. We all do. And so these businesses rely on quality trained staff to come in here. And so we have to support that. I have forever been a strong supporter of public schools and training, and I helped to actually get the STEP program at Tanoka Tech off the ground, even coined the name for it. So it's there. Let's make Minnesota inviting. Let's bring people in, and let's get people off the bench in the workforce, and that will make a difference in how we're going to keep our companies working and operational.
Thank you. And Carrie, would you like to provide a rebuttal?
Yes, so Senator Abler talks about being prudent and sounds, like it's about fiscal responsibility, which is definitely important. However, when we do massive cuts, it hurts people. So he oversaw $1 billion in cuts to health and human services and then bragged that he could cut $1 trillion more on the record. But then he didn't cut funding from chiropractors or acupuncture. So this is specifically benefiting, well, I won't say that. In addition, when you think about what he said, never been cuts to education, that is not true. There are massive cuts under Governor Pawlenty to education, and whenever we don't get the inflationary increase to keep up with inflation, that's a cut.
So question number 4, and we're going to start with Carrie. What should be the role of the Metropolitan Council in guiding policy development in the North Metro?
So what I've learned about the history of the Met Council of the past is that it took too large of a role in city planning, even requiring cities to submit their plans. I feel the Met Council shouldn't be getting that involved in very city-specific planning, but should play a larger role in the regional planning. Having a larger council like this play a role in protecting our waterways and our regional parklands makes sense to me. This council can do lake and river monitoring and data collection over the region that can't be done at the city level. It can also monitor our regional water supplies, which is a benefit to each city. I believe we could have a larger benefit from the Met Council under larger sustainability initiatives for the full region. Things like restoring habitat, increasing our energy resiliency in this region, as well as the continued development and maintenance of our regional parks and trails. I'd like to see the Met Council help with the expansion of the regional water and sewer lines. There have been water issues in the region, and honestly, no one thinks about water until they don't have clean water. So we've had a number of clean drinking water issues in the region in the past few years, and regional planning is important to prevent further problems. The Met Council was created in 1967 as a regional solution for regional problems. So we have to ensure that it's about balance. We want to protect local and personal decision making, but also consider regional objectives that will help protect taxpayer dollars, especially where the shared planning can produce and create efficiencies. We want to allow for growth while also ensuring that our regional infrastructure can keep up with that growth. And we want to ensure the region preserves our clean water and our natural environment for everyone. That's where a regional body like this can help support that balance.
And Jim, what should be the role of the Metropolitan Council in guiding policy development in the North Metro?
Well, thank you. My predecessor, when I was in the House, Charlie Weaver Sr., conjured up this Met Council idea as a way to work on sewage, and it's evolved into transportation, evolved into regional planning, and it's evolved into being a relatively, it's got a lot of use, and I have defended it many times that we should not abolish it. We need something like that. However, it needs to be kind of tamed a bit. And I think it came up in previous debates that it would make sense to have local elected officials on there in lieu of the Met Council members. Not an elected person to the Met Council, that would be horrible. But through a process that there would be a representative group of mayors and commissioners and township officials, or I guess there's no townships in our area, but people from the area so they can actually have a connection. Because right now it comes down as an above-down, go do this thing, and it's a little out of touch. Ray Zoran is a friend of mine, and he's our member, and he's a good person, so it's no impugning him. But as a structure, it makes no sense. You could also eliminate the Transportation Advisory Board as one more layer of wasted effort, so because then the elected officials on the council could do the work. And if you want to know how well they're doing, look at Southwest Light Rail. $2.7 billion to go 14 miles. We're talking about money for roads and how we can make them go further, and how Anoka County, Coon Rapids, Ramsey, and MnDOT work to do a lot of streamlining. Well, this has been the opposite way. And so if you want to just have a reason to think maybe we could do a little better, that may be just something off the top of your head. But it's useful. Make it work better. Make it collaborative. Like everything else should be in government. So people don't go like, what? What are they doing now? So there'd be no surprises and just solid, good policy. That's what it should be.
Thank you. An opportunity for a 45-second rebuttal, starting with Carrie.
I don't have a rebuttal. I like solid, good policy. That sounds good.
And Jim, would you have a rebuttal?
And if reelected, I'll continue working on solid, good policy. I just wanted to comment about a rebuttal, the last thing. This, in 2011, we had just survived the 2008 Great Recession, 2009. I had to borrow money to make payroll at my clinic. It's a way to really become an adult. But that reduction we had to do in the human services I did my part going off the floor was $1.8635 billion. And I did not sleep from the moment I got appointed to be the chair in December until March, when I got the bill done and they said, no one's going to die from this. And so they were not cavalier, it was like nothing. We wound up doing $1 billion with the governor. It still went up $1 billion. And so we were so careful, so cautious. It is not easy or glamorous to do this job, especially in a time of recession, which is why I'm so pushing for prudence on the surplus. Thank you.
This is the end of our questions for the forum, and now we will move to the closing statements of our candidates. We are requesting 60-second max per candidate. And Jim, we start with you.
But there is no minimum. I think
There
you
is
said
no
that earlier.
minimum.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for the people who have sat through this whole thing. I hope you found it enlightening. I really enjoyed it. It's nice to get to share even through a little robotic stuff there, and I would love to serve again. Not for me, but because I think I can do a good job. I think I've got the seniority, I have the connections, I know how to work with people. The very many things we want to get doing, I know how to do right off the bat. And so I would very much appreciate your vote. And I'm going to take a risk and burn up half of my time. I talked to Carrie about this already. I won't say what parties, but these are starting to come out. There's a very unflattering picture of my opponent on here by a major group, and I think it's terrible. I think we should have stuff that talks about what we did, what we're going to do, and then some people are saying I'm extreme. If anybody knows me, I'm not extreme. But anyway, so say what you want, do whatever you want, but people at home, read the disclaimer on these things, because my stuff is going to say Abler Volunteer Committee. And I don't know what yours says, something. But this stuff comes from me. This stuff comes from somebody else. Read carefully, be prudent, and I would love to be your senator again. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you. And Carrie?
Well, just really quick on that, I completely agree. I would 100% go with campaign finance reform, where money is taken out of politics. We could just say what our platform is, and you would vote based on that. I'm not there yet and don't have the ability to pass that yet. That is something I would like to do. So I'd like to thank the North Metro Mayors Association for setting up the forum and helping our residents learn about the candidates. And thank you to all of you who are watching the forum. Our great democracy requires citizen engagement, so thank you for engaging and for voting. Today I shared a little bit about who I am with you. I shared how I will put people first, not just in words, but also with actions and with how I vote. As your senator, I will vote to invest in public safety, to reduce gun violence, to ease the burden on your family budget, to protect women's rights. Now I would like to ask you for your vote. Connect with me at carrieformn.com. I'll come to work prepared and ready. I'll never walk away from the opportunity to compromise for the benefit of the people in my district and the people of Minnesota. Everyone deserves dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the close of the forum. We would like to thank our candidates, the North Metro Mayors Association, the City of Coon Rapids, and CTN staff for making tonight's event possible. Please remember to vote on or before Tuesday, November 8th. Thank you.